Her perfume hit first, soft, expensive, and hard to ignore. Then her voice followed, low and deliberate, the kind of tone that made you sit up straighter without realizing you had. "Can you stay a few minutes longer?" she asked, eyes on the monitor. Not me. It was almost 7 p.m. Everyone else had gone home. The office had that hollow sound, the hum of computers cooling down, a printer light blinking in the dark. I told myself I was only there to review a file. Nothing more. But then she turned her chair slightly toward mine. Her name was Elaine. 40-something, precise with words, never rushed. Even her silences carried weight. I'd been working under her for 3 months, and still couldn't figure out whether she liked me, trusted me, or barely noticed me at all. She gestured to the screen. "This section here," she said, leaning closer. "You missed a clause." Her hand moved across the desk to point something out, and then stopped on top of mine. Not firm, not even deliberate, just rested. For half a second, neither of us moved. The room seemed to shrink. I could hear the faint buzz of the overhead lights, the distant traffic through the window. Her nails were short, neat. Her skin was warm, steady, as if she hadn't noticed what she'd done. But the longer her hand stayed there, the less that seemed true. I didn't pull away. I wanted to say something, anything, to break the tension, to pretend I was still focused on the file, but my mouth wouldn't move. She breathed out slowly, a faint sigh, and then finally spoke. "Do you see it now?" Her tone didn't match her eyes. Her words were about a line of text, but her gaze lingered. It wasn't flirtatious. It was heavier than that, curious, conflicted, like she'd surprised herself. I nodded. "Yeah, I see it." She gave a small smile. "Good." But she didn't move her hand. Her ring finger brushed the side of mine as she adjusted the paper slightly, and the contact felt too specific to be accidental. I felt my pulse pick up, my throat tighten. Every sound around us, the ticking wall clock, the faint rustle of papers, became too loud. She must have noticed. Her lips parted, as if to say something, then closed again. When she finally did speak, her voice was softer. "You're careful with details," she said. "Trying to be," I managed. She nodded, looking down at our hands, still faintly touching. Then she slowly drew hers back, but not before her fingers traced a line down the side of mine. A quiet, apologetic motion, or maybe not. The air between us didn't reset. Thickened. I tried to focus on the file, to act like nothing happened, but she leaned in again, close enough that I could see the faint shadow at the base of her throat, the way a loose strand of hair brushed her cheek when she turned. She pointed to another section. "You missed this too," she murmured. Her breath was warm against my temple. I swallowed hard, trying to sound normal. "Guess I need more practice." She gave a faint, almost private laugh. "Practice isn't the problem." The way she said it, quiet, weighted, made me forget what we were even reviewing. Before I could ask what she meant, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hall. Both of us froze. Her hand slipped off the desk, back to her lap. She straightened in her chair, face unreadable again. The footsteps stopped outside the glass door. A shadow passed, then a knock, and just like that, the air between us broke, but the heat didn't leave. It only shifted, waiting. The knock broke the spell, but not what it left behind. Elaine told whoever it was to come in, her voice calm again. I pretended to be reading the file, though the words had blurred hours ago. The intern popped in to grab her phone charger and left just as quickly, leaving the room heavy with what hadn't been said. When the door closed, Elaine didn't look at me right away. She gathered her papers too neatly, aligning edges that were already straight. "You can go," she said quietly. "It's late." I hesitated, then nodded. "Right?" But she didn't move. Neither did I. Something hung in the space between us. Not the awkwardness of a mistake, but the weight of two people realizing they'd just crossed a line they'd both been standing too close to for too long. The next morning, she was different. Professional. Distant. I told myself that was better. That what happened last night was just a strange moment that would dissolve into memory once the emails started rolling in. But then she stopped by my desk around noon. "Walk with me?" she asked. Outside, the sky was a dull gray, the kind that makes the city seem colorless. We walked down the block toward the cafe. She didn't speak until we were halfway there. "You're quiet today," she said. I glanced at her. "So are you." That earned a faint, tired smile. "I've been told I overthink things." "Same." She studied me for a second, then turned away. "I wasn't always this careful," she said finally. "Used to think being open made me better at what I do. Turns out it just makes things complicated." There was a trace of something in her tone. Regret, maybe. I didn't ask. She sipped her coffee as we sat outside watching people pass. The wind pushed a strand of hair across her face, and before I thought twice, I reached over and brushed it aside. She froze, just long enough for me to realize what I'd done. "Sorry," I said quickly, pulling back. Her eyes met mine, not angry, not startled, just exposed. "You don't have to apologize," she said. Then she looked away again, and the moment passed. But it didn't leave. I learned pieces of her in fragments after that. A husband she'd left 5 years ago. A grown daughter she rarely saw. Nights she stayed late because it was easier than going home to an empty apartment. And me, a guy too young to have lived much, too careful to say what he wanted. Maybe that was why she kept me close. Not for what I knew, but for what I didn't. That evening, when she stopped by my desk again, her voice was softer. "About yesterday," she said. I looked up, waiting. She hesitated, then reached past me for a folder. Close enough that her sleeve brushed my arm. "Let's just forget it." But her hand lingered for a second too long. Again. This time I didn't move away. Her breath caught the smallest sound before she turned and walked off. I sat there for a moment, staring at the spot where her fingers had rested on my shoulder. It didn't feel like something to forget. It felt like the start of something neither of us could admit was real. It started as another late night at the office. The city outside was wrapped in rain. Steady, rhythmic, the kind that makes everything sound softer. I told myself I stayed to finish a report. But when Elaine appeared in the doorway, holding her coffee and looking just as tired, I knew that wasn't the truth. "Still here?" she asked. "Could ask you the same thing," I said. She smiled faintly, stepping inside. "You make it sound like I have a choice." She sat across from me, the desk between us scattered with papers. The smell of her perfume mixed with rain drifting in through the cracked window. We worked in silence for a while, the kind of silence that wasn't empty, just too full to touch. Every now and then, I'd catch her watching me. Not directly, just quick glances that looked away too fast. When I reached for the stapler, her hand brushed mine again. She froze. So did I. She didn't pull back this time. Her thumb traced the edge of my wrist. Quick, unconscious, gone a second later. But my whole body felt it. She looked up at me then, and the air shifted. Something unspoken, heavy, drew us forward a little without meaning to. "Elaine," I said quietly. Her eyes softened, but there was fear there too. "You shouldn't say my name like that." "Like what?" "Like it means something." The way she said it made me want to close the distance between us. But before I could answer, her phone buzzed. The sound sliced the moment clean in half. She grabbed it fast, almost flinching. The screen lit her face. A message unreadable from where I sat. She turned the phone over, face down. "It's nothing," she said, voice too quick. I nodded, but the lie sat between us, heavy as thunder. A minute passed. 2. Then she stood, walked around the desk, and leaned beside me to look at the screen. "You missed a line here," she murmured, finger tracing the page. Her sleeve brushed my arm. Her shoulder nearly touched mine. I didn't move. She smelled like warm paper and coffee and rain. I turned slightly, enough to see the pulse at her throat, the small tremor in her breath. "Elaine," I whispered again. She didn't answer. Her hand was on the desk, inches from mine. I could see the faint indent from her ring, long gone. My hand drifted closer without permission. Our fingers almost touched. Then footsteps. Fast ones. She stepped back instantly, too sharply, almost knocking over her mug. The door opened a second later. Our coworker Ben, drenched from the rain, laughing. "Still working? You two never quit," he said. Elaine's smile came too fast. "Just wrapping up." Ben dropped off a file, chatting about something I didn't hear. I kept my eyes on the desk, pretending to read. When he finally left, the silence roared back in. She exhaled slowly, eyes closed. Then she turned toward me, not smiling, not distant either. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "This can't happen." But the way she said it, it wasn't a warning. It was a confession. And when she reached past me to close the file, her fingers grazed my hand again, on purpose this time. Neither of us spoke. The rain outside grew louder, steady, relentless. Like it knew something was about to give. The rain hadn't stopped. It had followed me all week, hammering the windows, filling every quiet space with its steady pulse. Elaine had kept her distance since that night. Meetings were short, voices careful, eyes trained anywhere but each other. Still, I could feel it, the tension simmering just under the surface, waiting for something small to make it break. That something came on a Friday. She called me into her office right before closing. The blinds were half drawn, stripes of fading light cutting across her desk. She didn't look up when I entered. "Close the door," she said. I did. She didn't ask me to sit. "You've been distracted lately." I swallowed. "So have you." That made her look up. "Don't," she said quietly. "Don't turn this on me." I took a step forward. "Then what is this?" Her expression flickered. Anger, denial, something raw. "It's nothing. You're young, and—" "Don't do that," I said, cutting her off. "Don't hide behind my age." She exhaled sharply, pushing back from her chair. "You think you understand, but you don't. You don't know what this could cost me." Her voice cracked on the last word, and something inside me gave. I moved closer before I could stop myself. "Then tell me to leave," I said. "Really tell me." She didn't. Her eyes were wet but fierce. "You shouldn't make this harder than it already is." "I'm not the one making it hard," I said quietly. That broke her composure. She turned away, hands braced on the desk, breathing uneven. I stood behind her, close enough to feel the warmth coming off her. A strand of hair slipped from her bun, brushing her neck. Without thinking, I reached up and tucked it behind her ear. She froze. My hand lingered just a second too long, fingertips grazing her skin. "Don't," she whispered, but the word came out soft, trembling. Her shoulders rose and fell, shallow breaths. When she finally turned to face me, her eyes locked on mine like she'd run out of reasons not to. "You think this is simple," she said. "You think it's just attraction. It's not." Her lips parted. A tiny sound, almost a laugh, almost a sigh. "God, you don't make this easy." "Neither do you," I said. We stood there, barely a breath apart. The room felt too small for what filled it. The smell of rain, coffee, her perfume, everything blurred together. She reached for the folder on the desk, maybe to put something between us again, but her hand stopped halfway. My fingers caught her wrist. Gently, her pulse fluttered under my thumb. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she stepped forward, close enough that her chest brushed mine. Her breath hit my neck, slow, deliberate. "Tell me this is a mistake," I whispered. She closed her eyes. "I can't." Her hand came up, fingers trembling, tracing the line of my jaw. We were right there, one heartbeat from something that couldn't be undone. And then the sound of her name through the door. "Elaine!" We both froze. Her hand dropped. The doorknob turned. The doorknob stopped halfway. A voice, male, uncertain, called again. "Elaine? You in there?" Her eyes darted toward the sound. Panic flickered across her face before she masked it. "1 second," she called, her tone suddenly crisp. She stepped back from me fast. Too fast, bumping into the edge of her desk. I caught her arm instinctively. The contact sent a jolt through both of us, too electric for the moment we were trying to bury. "Don't," she whispered, eyes pleading. Please. I let go. The door opened. It was Ben again, holding a folder, pretending not to notice the tension thick enough to choke on. Sorry. Didn't know you were still. His words stumbled mid-sentence. His eyes flicked from her flushed face to me standing too close. Never mind. I'll just... Elaine's voice was sharp, too controlled. It's fine, Ben. What is it? He set the folder down carefully. You might want to see this. HR asked about the overtime logs. They, noticed you and... Ben, she interrupted. Comba cold. That'll be all. He hesitated, nodded, and slipped out. The door clicked shut. Silence again. But not the same silence. This one buzzed with something darker, the sound of risk settling into reality. She sat down slowly, rubbing her temple. They're watching ours now, she said quietly. Every name, every timestamp. I understood what she didn't say. Our late nights, the locked doors, the pattern. It was all there. Data points telling a story neither of us had admitted out loud. I took a step closer. You think he? She shook her head. Doesn't matter. Perception is enough. Her voice cracked at the edge of composure. I'd never seen her this undone. The confident woman who ran entire departments now staring at the floor like she'd lost ground she'd spent years building. You don't have to protect me, I said quietly. Her laugh came short and bitter. You think this is about you? I think it's about us. That word hung between us, dangerous. She looked up sharply. Don't say that. There is no us. I took another step forward. Then why can't you look at me when you say it? Her lips parted, but nothing came out. I reached out. Not to touch her, but to steady myself. And she moved too, brushing past me, close enough that her shoulder grazed my chest. The contact lingered just long enough to betray everything she was trying to hide. Her breathing quickened. You don't understand what I've already risked, she whispered. Then explain it. She turned then, really turned, eyes shining with something like fear. Because I asked for you. I blinked. What? She swallowed hard. You weren't assigned to me. I told HR I needed an assistant. I gave them your name. The room tilted. She looked at me like she hated herself for saying it. I thought I could handle it. I thought I just liked your work ethic, the way you pay attention, but I knew. I stepped closer, slow, unsure. You knew what? Her voice broke. That I'd already crossed the line before you ever touched me. Neither of us moved. The air was thick with guilt and something that didn't feel like regret. Finally, she straightened, composed again, barely. We end this now, before someone else does it for us. But as she walked past, her hand brushed mine. Deliberate, trembling. The touch of someone saying goodbye and wanting the opposite. She didn't look back. And for the first time, I realized how dangerous wanting her had become. The office was empty again. It always came back to this. The quiet after everyone else had gone. The faint hum of lights. The echo of what we hadn't said. Elaine stood by the window, arms folded, watching the city below. The storm had passed, but the air was still heavy, charged like it hadn't decided whether to clear or break again. I stood in the doorway, unsure if I was supposed to speak. You shouldn't be here, she said without turning around. You didn't tell me to leave. Her reflection shifted slightly in the glass. A small exhale, the kind that carries a dozen unspoken things. I tried, she said. I keep trying. I stepped inside. You also keep failing. That made her laugh, soft and humorless. You don't know what it's like, being seen by someone who shouldn't see you. I do now. She turned then. The light caught the lines near her eyes, the exhaustion, the quiet grace she carried like armor. For the first time, she looked her age. And for the first time, I realized how much that mattered to her. You think this is romantic, she said. But it's not. It's two people reaching for something they shouldn't need. I took another step closer. Then why do we keep reaching? Her breath hitched. We were only inches apart now, close enough that the air felt alive between us. A pulse, a tremor, a warning. Her perfume clung to the air, faint and familiar. I keep thinking, she whispered. If I just stop answering your emails so late, if I stop asking you to stay after hours. But you don't. Her jaw tightened. Because you make me forget how lonely I am. That was the confession. Not love. Not lust. Something more human, more dangerous. I didn't speak. I just stood there, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her skin. My hand rose halfway, hesitant, to touch her face, then stopped. She looked at me like she wanted to move closer and run at the same time. Say it, I said. Say what? That you don't want this. Her silence said everything. I closed the distance slowly. My hand found her cheek. She didn't pull away. Her eyes fluttered shut, breath shallow. My thumb brushed the corner of her mouth. Light, uncertain. You shouldn't, she murmured. I know. Her lips parted, not quite a kiss, not yet. Just the gravity of it pulling both of us to the edge. Then she stepped back. One step. Two. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. If we start this, we don't get to undo it. I nodded. If we walk away, we never will. For a moment, she searched my face. Something breaking and rebuilding behind her eyes. Then she reached for my hand, holding it for the briefest second, squeezing once like a wordless answer. When she let go, it wasn't rejection. It was understanding. She turned toward the window again, voice steadier now. Close the door behind you. I did, but I didn't leave right away. Through the glass, she stood motionless, one hand on her desk. The same desk where it all began. We'd both made a choice. And somehow, that felt like the only way to keep what was real between us from breaking completely. Weeks passed. The world didn't end, though it felt like it should have. Elaine kept her distance at first. Meetings became shorter, smiles more measured. I told myself it was fine, that what we'd had was just a charged moment between two people who knew better. But every time I saw her, something in her eyes said it wasn't gone. The storm outside had passed. The one inside us hadn't. Then one Friday night, she stopped by my desk again. Everyone else had already left. The hallway lights were dim, the office almost peaceful in its emptiness. You're still here, she said, leaning against the doorframe. You always find me when I am. That earned the smallest smile. You could have found another job by now. I didn't want another boss, I said. Or another you. She looked down, trying to hide the faint tremor of a laugh. You really should stop saying things like that. Why? Because they make it hard to keep pretending I don't want to hear them. That was the first honest thing she'd said in weeks. She crossed the room, stopping a few feet from me. You were right, she said quietly. About everything. I was scared of being seen again. Not because of you, but because I forgot what it felt like. I stood up slowly. And now, her eyes softened. Now I remember. The silence between us wasn't tense anymore. Felt fragile, full of relief. When she reached for my hand, it wasn't hesitant this time. Her fingers laced through mine, firm, warm, steady. She looked down at them, like she couldn't quite believe how natural it felt. You know this won't be easy, she said. I don't care. She smiled, shaking her head lightly. You will, but maybe that's okay. I stepped closer until we were face to face, the faint glow from her desk lamp washing her in soft amber light. She smelled like rain again, faintly floral, familiar. Elaine, I said, voice low. She looked up. Instead of answering, I brushed a stray lock of hair from her face, fingers tracing along her jaw. She leaned into the touch, not resisting, not overthinking, just there. Her forehead rested against mine. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The office, the rules, the fear, all of it faded into the quiet hum around us. No rush, no urgency, just the small, steady rhythm of two people finally allowing something to be real. When I pulled back, she was smiling, tired, genuine, lighter than I'd ever seen her. Guess this is our new file to review, I said softly. She laughed quietly. Don't expect it to be easy. I wasn't planning on easy. She squeezed my hand once more before letting go. Not to end it, but to make space for whatever came next. And for the first time, neither of us looked away. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?